All right. Right. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to Black Success Magazine, the podcast. It's Black Success Magazine, the podcast, and I'm your host, Sherman Ray, publisher of Black Success Magazine. We come to you weekdays, Monday through Fridays, where we discuss people, places, and trends of influential and successful at Black Success Magazine. All we do is success. You can actually find us online at www.blacksuccessmagazine.com, or you can email me at info@blacksuccessmagazine.com. And as always, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today we're going to be talking with Robby Thomas on Financial Thursdays. So let's get started. And folks, today we're just excited about bringing together my brother Robby Thomas. I'm very excited about having him back on the show for Financial Thursdays. And Robby, we're going to be having. I'm looking forward to today because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects. So welcome to the show again.
Thank you for having me again. Appreciate it.
So Robby, how things been going with you this week? You've been having a great week so far?
Busy week, but very good busy, as opposed to just being busy doing very little. But it's been a very, very busy. It's actually been a busy month so far. So we're just grateful for all the great stuff that's coming down the pike.
Yeah, I tell you, even things looks like we're coming out of COVID, which we've got a lot of good things on the horizon. It looks like there's another vaccine that came out, which I'm very excited about.
And also the trend, the infection trend is trending downwards, which is really good.
It is, I'll tell you, and for business people and for just people, I think for society, we want to see the trend going down, down, and down. But we came here today to talk about finance, and we got an interesting subject coming up today. And the subject today we're going to be talking about is utilizing key strategies in business. So, Robby, explain to us what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, for most business owners, we're concerned with obviously getting in, doing the business that we either set up or we're trying to execute. But a lot of times we don't have the time to sit back and think about how we are doing business. And even as we're getting out of a previous year, especially a year that 2020 was, it's really important to sort of pivot and begin to reshape how we do business. And that really takes strategy. So there are various kinds of strategies, but there's an overall strategy that businesses need to engage in periodically. So there's short-term strategies that's more like tactics that you're doing to drive your business. But then there's also this overall or this overarching strategy. And what that looks at is over a period of time, say 2 to 5 years, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to see in your business? And that takes into consideration things like what's going on in the environment, in the industry, in the niche that you execute, that you're in, and also what has changed with the operation itself. So there are several things that you want to incorporate into looking at an overall strategy to execute over a 2 to 5 year period. So that's kind of the big first step in talking strategy.
Okay, well, that's cool. And you and I both started businesses, which is great. I had a restaurant. You're in the financial banking and real estate, so you're an investor and stuff.
Yes.
So people start a business, and I guess as we talk a little bit more about this, business owners will get this because they're saying to themselves, you know what, I identify with being there,
right,
at this particular phase of my business.
Correct.
So let's start with the strategy that you would when you're starting a business. So, and what kind of strategy are we talking about there?
So there's several different types of strategies. So there's strategies of if you're already executing a business and you want to improve your sales, for example. So you need a marketing strategy there, or you need a sales strategy, or you might need a product strategy, right? So depending, you need various strategies for various aspects of the business. So what needs to happen is that you really sit down and look at where you are at the moment.
Okay. Yeah.
and where you want to go, right?
Mhm.
So the strategy is the bridge that brings you to the promised land, so to speak. I think about the game of chess
Mhm.
and how you execute on the board, is understanding the lay of the land, right? You want to understand what the other person's or the competition's doing. You want to understand what the environment is, if the person's aggressive, assertive, or, the nuances of your environment. That factors into the type of strategy you build. So one of the things I have done is to really play off of individuals I value. Like, for example, this week I reached out to a person that I respect dearly and listened to them talk about some of the things that they have done
Mhm.
to move their business forward. So you want to create a board of sort of this brain trust around you, right?
Yeah.
So individuals that you trust and respect, whether it be mentors, it doesn't even have to be people in the same business, but it could be individuals that have experience around navigating choppy waters, people that have done some successful things, or even people that have learned from mistakes, right? So surround yourself with people who can help you navigate and shape your specific path as you look to draw to build strategies for success.
Yeah. And there's so much we're talking about here now. I mean,
Yes.
so those of you who are just joining us right now, it's Financial Thursdays with Robby Thomas. And we're talking about business, utilizing strategies in business. And even as you're talking, Robby, and you're really, for those who are just coming in, you need to get a pen and paper together, because really, Robby's talking about a lot of things that I really, even as you're saying, stuff, I'm writing things down. I'm going, okay, a marketing strategy.
Yes.
You're talking about getting mentors.
Yes.
Well, let's back up a little bit. And also, depending on where you're at in business,
Right.
your strategy is going to change. It's going to change from this. And I guess the thing, so I'm gonna interrupt you. So I'm gonna interrupt you a lot in this one, Rob, because this one's gonna be one of those. Yeah. The I think what a lot of business owners do is, instead of looking at their business and what their business is doing, their individual business, they start looking at other people.
Right.
And they start saying to themselves, you know what? I see X business and they're making $1 million, and I'm Y business and I'm only making 50,000.
Right.
And they start comparing themselves, but they're not in the same place, are they? I mean, will they change their strategy?
You're absolutely right. You're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Because that's a practice called benchmarking. So,
Okay.
but when you benchmark, meaning that you're looking at apples to apples, you don't look at apples to oranges, right? So you want to make sure, if you're measuring your metrics, your performance, your business to some other business, make sure it's the same size, it's the same niche, it's the same type of product or service, so that there is an apples to apples comparison as opposed to apples to oranges. I can't compare myself to Apple, right?
Yeah.
No pun intended. Apple, the company. But it's really important for us to know, because that's not a useful thing to do. If I'm saying, I'm a small, startup business, I'm a small, working from home type business, I cannot just look at myself and go, well, I'm going to compare myself to an established business that's been around for 10 or 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is some things that you have to understand, that you don't set yourself up for that kind of failure because you don't measure up to a business that's already established. So it's really important to make sure you're measuring, but you're measuring apples to apples, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's just and I think we did a podcast on this quite a while ago, and that's why it's so fresh in my mind, is that we tend to look at other businesses and say, okay, my business should be exactly where they're at, even though they started 20 years ahead of me.
Right.
And they've already,
Yeah.
They've already got infrastructure, they've already got traction, they've already gone through the 7 years, the 14 years.
They've seen the cycles.
They've seen the cycles.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about and we'll kind of go in off the top of your head, some of the strategies that we could be talking about today. Because I know you mentioned a marketing strategy.
Right.
So what kind of strategies are we?
So one of the key marketing strategies for small businesses, I think, is really understanding your product and differentiating your product. Mm-hmm. So if I was talking to someone recently about they do homemade soaps and stuff like that. So there's a lot of soap on the market, right? But what differentiates your product from everyone else's? So you can't outspend people, right? Because you don't have the money, right? So in other words, you could outspend them in marketing and advertising, that kind of thing, and be in a number of different places. But if you are looking for unique spaces to show your products or to distribute your products, you can do that. You attack it from a guerrilla perspective. In other words, you can't do the air attack. Then you got to do the guerrilla style attack, meaning you've got to be in places that people don't want to go or that they just don't have an interest in going.
Sure.
So you want to differentiate your brand using more intelligence as opposed to try to or spend a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So you've got a low cost. You've got to make sure you manage those expenses. So you need a low cost solutions. So you've got to find ways to, for example, if you have the soap product, you want to then get on the phone and go through your Rolodex or go through your phone and really try to build relationships with individuals who then build relationships with other individuals. You can't spend money in advertising expecting to get the kind of return. You've got to do things a little differently in order to get your product in front of eyeballs or other stores in your neighborhood that you might be able to say, hey, listen, could we share some spaces? Here's another thing. You find other products that sort of work together with soaps to co-brand you as a business and give you some exposure with another brand.
Yes.
So there are other kinds of strategies that might be just perfect for you. That's not going to be something you have to come out a ton of money from your pocket to try to, get in front of other potential customers or consumers. So those are some of the kind of strategic things that you have to think about as a small business.
Yeah. And we deal with a lot of small business owners.
Right.
So really in their wheelhouse that they can't look at themselves and say, okay, I can get on the same level as Procter and Gamble. It's not going to happen. No. I remember when I started my restaurant, I spent a lot of time looking at social media and how to utilize social media early on to get my voice out, get my brand out.
Yeah.
And the net effect of that was, especially using social media as opposed to using a high-priced, ad agency like Procter and Gamble's would or Starbucks. Oh, sorry, I said them out loud. I'm sorry, I almost cursed right on.
Right.
I was in the coffee business, so but they would have used a high-priced New York ad agency. I didn't have that kind of budget, so I used social media to my advantage. The net effect, as I was going to say, was that we looked as big as Starbucks.
Yeah.
Because so you can utilizing the right strategy and considering where you're at, as long as you stay within your wheelhouse, those boundaries,
right,
and utilizing that as opposed to looking at what everybody else is doing, can have a significant net effect.
You're absolutely correct because today, the playing field is level to a certain extent. So maybe 20 years ago, we're dating ourselves, right? You didn't have social media and the pervasiveness of social media to utilize to get your business out there. You had to do word of mouth. You had to do radio. You had to do, those types of conventional approaches, which is fine. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it if you're able to. You should, because if you don't advertise, people don't know who you are, where you are. But with social media, I have done business with a lot of people I don't even know. Right? They've got a page. They offer a service. Fiverr is another platform that you meet people who do different things. Right? They're entrepreneurs, and they're doing things that you don't even know who they are. They're in another country or something like that. But the point I'm making here is that yes, you don't you don't necessarily have to interface with an individual to do business with them. And so your business, people don't know necessarily that you have a brick and mortar. They don't know whether you have a building, an office space, you're leasing real estate. It doesn't matter. That, the fact that you have a page that describes what you do and that you do it in a way that's professional and engaging, people will do business with you. And of course, your online reputation, which brings me to another point of having a digital strategy.
Yeah,
right.
A digital strategy. Huge.
A digital strategy. Most businesses will not survive without having a digital strategy. So if you don't have the time to sit down and think about your digital footprint and how that plays into your overall strategy, then you're missing opportunity. So businesses must have a digital strategy, not just a web page, right? Yeah. You've got to have a funnel. You've got to have, if you're doing writing, you're doing SEO content, all of these things matter in the overall strategy of trying to drive and to stay relevant as a business.
Robby, let's talk about that just a little bit too, about a digital strategy, because nowadays people are so used to terrestrial stuff. I mean, they're just used to brick and mortar. If it's not something you can touch, they just don't, it just doesn't compute in their mind.
Right.
How important is it for a digital strategy? Because I know one of the things that happened to me, and once again, I come back to my restaurant, is that all I really know, I know very well social media, Twitter, Facebook, all of those platforms, social media platforms, and how to utilize them, the time of day to do them. There's certain things, but there's so many people who do not use social media. They're kind of old school unless they can pick up the phone or walk across the street and give you a cup of coffee, or a cup of sugar. They're probably not even going to talk to you. And I'm afraid that they're going to miss out on, on a vital part of marketing. Can you talk a little bit more about a digital strategy?
Well, we've been, as a society, moving more and more into dematerialization, okay? Meaning that things are certainly moving away from, what we've obviously held near and dear. Fax machines moved into, the iPhone. Everything that we used to know in the terrestrial world, in the analog world, has been moving slowly into digitization and tokenization and all those kinds of things. So artificial intelligence, so it's important for us. We use it every day. The first place we go to when we look for anything is where? Google, right? Google. If you're looking to order food today, we normally would have gone to a restaurant website. But today we're going to DoorDash or we're going to Uber Eats because that's new menu, right? So every business industry or every industry has been adopting and adapting to where the sentiments are. Now, the majority of our population are baby boomers, correct? And so baby boomers are kind of on the cusp of, the old world and part of the new world.
Wow. I don't know if I like that.
Yeah. So we're on the cusp, right? We remember the old world. And I say we because I'm a part of that group, right? We remember the old world, but we also are in the new. But we're not digital natives. We're digital immigrants. It's another question. We need to move from being the Gen X's and the Gen Y's and millennials. They live and breathe in this digital space. So if you're going to try to get new customers and you're trying to get new business, you have to speak that language. And so you as a business, even though you may have a brick and mortar, you still need a digital strategy to get people acquainted with your brand, acquainted with who you are, and it must be interactable and it must be prepared to engage on a mobile level, not just the old desktop. So you have to make sure you optimize your web content so that it's mobily, that it's not clunky in the mobile space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does. And that's funny. You mentioned something that we are not, that baby boomers are, even though we know a lot about social media, we're not native to the whole digital.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're
culture.
digital immigrants.
We're
And so,
digital.
they're kids that have grown up in the digital world with the internet. There is no before the internet for them, right? So the internet was always there. For us, we remember, not having an internet. The internet
good old days.
this ethereal, thing that we didn't quite understand. Now we know that it has revolutionized commerce, and so e-commerce is now still the largest sector, that the most active and growing sector in the global economy. So, and it will continue to be that way. So we've got to make sure we understand it and engage digitally in this new economy.
Yeah, it seems to me like us digital immigrants.
Yes.
That, and I love that word. I really do. Did you just make that up, or is that?
No,
I
did not.
No,
I can't take credit for that.
That's a good one. I love that one. Because it seems to me like there is an entire shift in business.
Yes.
In everything we do, literally, I shouldn't say just in business, in everything we do to the digital realm, because especially now, post-COVID, okay, so I'm already thinking about post-COVID, that everything has gone digitally, and if people are not a part of that, literally, they've got to rethink their whole thing. I mean, they really do, because it's not going back to the way it was.
Well, everywhere from the public sector, private sector, and in small business arena is being impacted, but it's positive because you can now reach. I mean, I can do business, and I have done business, anywhere in the world, right, with what you do. So depending on, obviously, if you have that kind of business, if you're doing service business, like Fiverr is all over the world, right? There are other kinds of avenues for a entrepreneur if they in fact understand how to engage this new reality, right? So the digital world, and you must have a digital strategy that gives you the opportunity to put your product or service in front of, obviously, a wider audience. But it's important to know how to do that and why you're doing it, not just because it needs to be done, but you must have a comprehensive strategy. So let's back all the way up to, how you begin the whole process. So, what's the vision for your business? What's your specific vision? I like vision boards, and I create a vision board of what I want to do. So that's step number one. The mission of your business is really tied to both the vision and the execution. Right. So you're creating a roadmap that will get you to the vision. And so the strategy is how you get there. On a more granular level, it will be the tasks that you do within that strategy that ultimately helps you to execute on that overall strategy. So hopefully that wasn't too convoluted, but that's basically how you get there. Assess where you are so that you can begin to think about, what are the steps I take? I go back to, one of the classics, Sun Tzu's The Art of War. And, one of the reasons why that is still a bestseller today, right? It was written maybe thousands of years ago. Why is it still a bestseller today? Because it talks about war, and business in many respects is like war, and you have to understand the terrain. You got to understand the enemy. You got to understand yourself, right? And then the conditions that in the theater of operations, if you will. So you've got to understand in the environment in which you're doing business. Is it a great economy? Is it a down economy? Is there people spending money? People not spending money? And so those are some of the things that also factor into what you need to do to be on the black side, on the positive side of the balance sheet and the income statement 2 to 5 years. 2 to 5 years from now.
Yeah, and it's funny. This is such a great topic, because I know we were talking about a 2-year horizon, we were talking about a 5-year horizon.
Yeah.
And in the last couple of minutes we have, let's talk about horizons and how your strategy should change. What does it look like 2 years, at 5 years? Is there such a thing as a 10-year strategy? And what, and literally, because we only have a couple more minutes left, but
Right.
what kind of, give us a little, a snippet of what those strategies might be if you're moving forward.
Well, it's an excellent question. So yeah, I mean, you should have a 10-year plus is more of a long-term strategy. So you're really talking closer to retirement. Where do you want to be in 10 years? For folks like you and me, that's retirement age. I don't really plan to go sit down and recline on a beach anywhere, but I want to do as much productivity as I could. But yeah, there has to be some comprehensive thought put into what you want to do in terms of your business. You really need to determine if you want to build a business that you want to pass on to, your future generation, right? Your posterity, or do you want to build something that you want to eventually sell? So you have to determine what type of strategy is it a hold strategy? Is it a buy, reposition a business, an existing business, get it up and running and sell? Or whether you want to take it public. There are various strategies that you have to employ. You're not just doing a business so that you can earn a paycheck. That's part of the way that we approach it. But you have to think about, what do you want to do? You want to build equity to pass on to another generation. If you want to buy equity so that you can, cash out, you have an exit strategy there. So it all depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what your overall strategy is. Do you want to continue to own this business again over the duration? You may be in a business that you have to, for example, I'll give you a quick example. Real estate is a business that I'm in. And one of the things that you have to decide if you're purchasing an apartment building or something like that, you have to make sure you understand what the strategy is going in. Is it to hold for rents, for cash flow, versus you want to eventually sell and realize your returns that way. So there are various strategies that you can employ, and a business is very similar. It's an asset, and you have to manage the asset according to your strategic initiatives or your strategic what type of strategic outcomes you're trying to achieve. So those are some of the considerations you have to look at when looking into getting into business, managing the business, and then at some point, whether there's an exit strategy to get out of the business, much like what you guys did selling your shop.
Yeah, and I think a lot of businesses actually have when they go in, and men will identify with this. You start a business, and that's your baby. I'm going to live and die with this thing. It's like a marriage, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what happens, whether the thing is failing or not, they're going to continue to try to make that thing work, as opposed to going into the business saying that this has a shelf life.
Yeah.
This is a shelf life. Yeah, and at a certain point, I need to find out if I'm on target for that shelf life. So maybe going into a business saying I have an exit strategy way in the beginning, so that that you're going for a goal, as opposed to I'm going to continue to keep this business for the rest of my life. And
that's a profound statement. The terminology I would add to that is to think of your business as it's an asset, but you need an asset management strategy incorporated into your overall strategy. So your business is your baby. I get that. Yeah. It's your baby. You created it and all that. But even babies become independent, and they leave. So at some point, if your business isn't being managed properly, then you either go down with the ship, or you can say, it's at the height of its, success. Maybe there's a time to retool or to pivot and sell the business, where it's most profitable, and be able to move into something else, if that's part of your goal. But if it's something that you want to keep moving, through generation to generation, then you need a succession strategy to make sure that's done the right way, with the tax incentives and tax advantages and all that kind of stuff. So all of those things are important to really weigh in on as you obviously take the entrepreneurial route.
That's true. Thank you so much, Robby. We appreciate you being on the show today. We'll see you again next week for Financial Thursdays with Robby Thomas. Thanks a lot, Robby. We'll talk to you later. Okay, brother?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
And folks, thanks once again for being a part of the show today for Black Success Magazine, the podcast. Once again, you can check us out at blacksuccessmagazine.com. You can email me at info@blacksuccessmagazine.com. And we will see you again tomorrow for Open Line Friday on Black Success Magazine podcast. This has been Sherman Ray, Black Success Magazine, the podcast. We'll see you again tomorrow, 8:30 in the morning. Bye-bye.